okay? It's very hard to tell from up here. Oh, that's okay. Is that better? Yeah. I first of all just wanted to say how absolutely thrilled I am to be here. This is I've been in the job for a bit over 4 months, and I've had lots of meetings with sort of 1 or 2 people and, or, 10 for sort of round tables. But this is my first sort of library sector en masse, and it's very exciting. In fact, I was at we're in Bundaberg. I was at Brisbane Airport waiting to get on the plane, and there were some people there, and I was, people waiting, and then I heard someone say, "It's called Spot the Librarian," and I think they're sitting over there. It's called Spot the Librarian. Oh, this is where it is. And I was just thinking, okay, I think these are now my peeps. And it made me think, what's the collective noun for a group of librarians? And I think maybe it should be loud, a loud of librarians, which goes back to, we had a roundtable dinner in Brisbane with sort of different leaders from different parts of the sector, so public, libraries, universities, schools, etc. And Vicky McDonald, State Librarian, was there, and I asked her to make a few comments at the beginning to get people talking. And she referenced the fact that it's 10 years since the misogyny speech, Julia Gillard. And then she said, things have changed since then, thank God, but they have to keep changing. And she said, we have to be loud. Libraries have to be loud about the role we play. And that's something that I think, we'll talk more about this, but ALIA, I think, has a very big role to play. And that's what I think we can do more than anything, is actually help promote. And in some ways, because I was saying to the group before, I feel like I'm at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting often, because I say, my name's Cathie and I'm not a librarian. But I think in some ways, having that fresh perspective, I can actually, sort of see afresh just how amazing the sector is in all sorts of ways, and it's got to be told out there. So that's what I just wanted to start off with, but I did also want to acknowledge the traditional owners of where we are today, and I've heard a number of people saying it now, so I'm just going to nail it. The Tarabalang Bunda, the Gurung Gurung, Gurang, and the Ba'ilai people. That's the one that gets us all stuck. But the sector I worked in before was actually legal background, but my previous job was actually as Managing Director at the Grains Research and Development Corporation, so quite different. So I've worked with lawyers, I've worked with grain growers, and in fact, I want to speak to you, Alona, because our chair is from Goondiwindi. And so, not our chair, their chair, because I'm now here, yes. But with grain growers, I must admit, I never heard an acknowledgement of country at anything we did. Now it's changing a bit, I think, but it's just wonderful, I think, how authentically and genuinely the library sector embraces the respect for our First Nations, and I wanted to, pay that respect to any First Nations people that are in the room here today as well. But it's truly wonderful, and I think you sort of get used to what's wonderful when you live it every day, but from someone coming in from a different sector, it's special, and it's fantastic. So also I want to say I really enjoyed those lightning talks. Unfortunately, I can't be here tomorrow because I'm flying up to Darwin for some meetings, but I really enjoyed each and every single one of them. And I'm sorry I can't listen to all of them because I see that there are other lightning talks over the next couple of days, but it's a great method. You're all fantastic speakers, just so engaging. Like, I was just hanging off every word, and I think it's because you feel it, you believe it, and that's what matters. And it was, a real privilege to hear all of that, so thank you. What I wanted to start with, I have got some slides there, pretty boring compared to everything that's been before, but I don't want to do death by PowerPoint, so I don't have too many. But what I wanted to say, I suppose, and I liked I'm just trying to remember, I'm terrible with names, but, oh no, it was you, Alona, who said about, do these questions, do they mean anything to you? I had written it down before, but I'm stealing that approach because I like it, which is, have you sort of thought about where might my next job be? Do I want to stay in public libraries? Maybe I want to work in a different sort of library. Who will I be working with next? Who might be working alongside me? What if they're not a librarian? How will I feel about that? What about succession planning? Are you looking and thinking who's coming next? Or are you thinking you want to be the next person up the rung? If that's the way you look at things, or you just, like me, I just like to sort of look sideways and do lots of different things. How do you communicate what you do to your employer? Do they understand what you do? If any of those things resonate, then Professional Pathways, the project, will be of interest to you. And it's something which this project is bigger than ALIA. It's not about ALIA, it's not about us increasing membership numbers, anything like that. It's bigger than us, it's about you, it's about the industry. And it's about, what does it look like now? Let's pause and see what are the patterns in terms of employment, in terms of graduates, in terms of the skills, the changing circumstances in society, and what does the industry need to do to make sure we're loud and that we're heard and understood for years to come. So, now I'm not sure. Oh, there you go, that's quite easy. So the vision for the Professional Pathways project is really about the workforce, and it's about the investment in the people for the library and information services, and it's so that there's a diverse and valued and supported workforce with all the different skills that are needed. What I'm going to talk to you about is the process of what's happened with this project, but I'll skip through that. I just want to it's been going for a couple of years. You may have been following it closely, you may not have followed it at all. Either way is fine. What I want to do is just sort of place where we're at the moment so that you understand where it's at, and it's not always these words, and what you can do. So sort of what action you can take out of it. So it's been going, I think it started in about 2019, and it has had a whole various number of sort of stages. Oh, I didn't realise these all came up like this. I'll just do that quickly. The approach to it is four-pronged. There's about a clear framework, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and that's the focus of the current consultation. Actually, let me go to the next page. This is a better one. This is a snake that we always see. So at the top of that is when it started, which was in 2019. And went along, and there were some focus groups, and it was talking about the future of LIS education. And then they realised, look, it's bigger than just LIS education and the diplomas at TAFE and the courses at university. It's bigger than that because it's about what do the employers think, it's about who else is out there, what are different backgrounds people bring. And so it was broadened out, and then there were some, there's an initial thing which was launched in November 2020 and talking about this is what's going forward. Now I talked to someone earlier and said I want to do a bit of myth busting, but the risk of me myth busting is I might tell you a myth that you didn't ever know about and then bust it, but then I've told you. And so maybe I shouldn't do that. So what I might start with, does anyone has anyone heard anything about the Professional Pathways project and anything about it which makes them nervous or they're worried about? No? Okay, well, I'm not going to... Oh, yes, sorry, go, Lisa. Sector in Australia. No, look, I absolutely agree. And look, I'm not going to bust the myth because I don't think the myth is out there, so that's good. Basically, in a nutshell, what it was is that some statements were made back in 2020 which almost made it as though decisions had been made. No decisions have been made. There's true consultation. The consultation at the moment is around the frameworks, which I'll get to, and then it's about professional recognition, what that means for you in the industry. But this project, as Lisa says, is critical in terms of shaping how you want your industry, your sector to look like, both for your future, for others coming through, and for how you're seen by employers. So we're now in the pale blue area there, which is the stage of develop. So the Discover was doing lots of work. It took about 2 years. There was lots of consultation. In the develop phase, they have developed, sorry, I'm going a bit all over the place because I'm not sure which to look at. They've actually had a technical report which has lots of detail, which Dr. Gillian Hallam did, and then they've had focus groups around that, and then what they've got now is a consultation paper that's out there. The consultation paper does two things. It talks about the frameworks, and which looks like this. Oh, that's not gonna... Who knew? Okay, I'm just gonna... This is the framework that you may or may not have seen. The framework really is a way of giving a map. If you think you're somewhere and you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. But if you're in a profession and you actually want to know, well, you know, how can I either explain what we do to other people, or how can I step through it myself and go to different places? How can I learn more skills? You want to have a consistent map, that everyone has the same map, and you actually say, this is what we do. Now, you can go to the universities or to the TAFE courses and you can look at their course outlines, but that really isn't going to help much because it's all going to be different. So what this is attempting to do is to sort of say, this is what it means. These are the skills and experience that's needed if you're going to work in the library and information services sector. Now, this is just a first go. And what we're wanting people to do is to have a look at this, and in the consultation paper available on the website, it goes through each of these in detail. So you've got the foundation domains at the bottom, which set out, they're called foundation domains, which is the basic things about knowing about your sector and your organisation you're working with, broader information contexts, ethics and values, which is critical and I think is probably like a really strong suit for the library and information sector, and also an understanding about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowledges and culture. And then it's got each of the different elements that, you know, above, information services, information management, community engagement, etc. And that's all detailed. And then active professionalism is that sort of thing across the top. Now, in a way, I think you can just call it lifelong learning would be another way. I think the word professionalism or professional can get people really caught up and becomes a little bit of an exclusive thing, and who is one, who isn't. And part of what we're looking at with, I mean, if I'd named it, I wouldn't have called it professional pathways. I think I would have just called it LIS pathways or the workforce, because one of the things I've noticed with the sector is just how genuinely inclusive it is. And it seems funny then when you hear about people saying, well, I'm working in a library, I've been working there for 15 years, I'm not a librarian, but I know the staff and I know my community, but I feel lesser because I'm actually, you know, not treated the same. And I just think, and I was really surprised to hear that people have that experience, or else I've come in from a different discipline area, but I feel lesser, or ALIA has made me feel lesser because I can't be an associate member, or I have to have allied field and I feel lesser. So we've heard these sort of things, and I was quite surprised to hear that, because I sort of thought, well, that's funny, because one of the values of the library sector is the inclusion, equality, etc. So why does that suddenly come in? And what I think Pathways is looking to do is not trying to make everybody the same, definitely not wanting to say these people are better or not, but acknowledging difference and the value of that difference. And so you might have a librarian who got their qualification, through QUT or something 15 years ago, and they've been working, and that's fantastic, and they're really valued, and that's important. You might have somebody else who's working in the IT area and really focusing on digital things in a library, but doesn't have that LIS qualification, but there are other avenues and ways they can continue to learn and contribute to the sector. We know that fees for courses these days are prohibitive. So even if somebody has come in and thinks, oh, I love this, I've come in through community engagement or some other way, I'm now find myself working in a local library, public library. This is great, I really want to do this, but, do you have 40 grand hanging around to go and do a master's? So it's, what are some other ways, not in any way to negate the importance of those degrees, but not everyone has the opportunity to get them. So how do we value other skills that come in? Because it doesn't have to be either or. You can have it. We can have it all, but how do you value that? So that's what we're looking at. I'm just going to. This is. Oh, and I'm not going to do that. I should have looked at these slides again. I'll go back. I'm going to go back to this one. The approach that we're talking about is the frameworks that I just went through. That is actually in the consultation paper. We're focusing on that. We want to hear from you whether you think, are we missing anything in that actually represents the type of work you do? Is it, how would you use the framework? Would you actually, do you think your employers would use it? Do you think councils would actually say, oh, okay, that's interesting, yes, we will start recruiting people based on those skills. What have we got, what is missing, etc. There are lots of questions around that we want to hear from you about. Then the other three bits to the project are that we're working with educators to strengthen those accredited courses, because that core sort of qualification is still really important, or whether it's TAFE. And ALIA spends a lot of time in accrediting those to sort of say, yes, that fits the bill for industry and what we need. So we're continuing to do that work. We're not leaving that alone, but that's not what we're consulting on at the moment. The third bit there is about the new professional pathways and about where can people go. We're touching on that in this consultation paper because we ask questions, which I'll get to at the end, about what does professional recognition mean for you, or what does it mean to have a micro-credential, and what even is that, etc. So we talk about that a little bit, but once we've got all this feedback, we're actually going to have a model which we'll be presenting next year with all the results of this consultation to talk about how it might look. So if somebody does come in from a different discipline, what are some things they can do? What are some courses they can do, which actually, like a public library proficiency program, for example, we have for people who come in, but what other equivalent things can we have? This last one is the one that I sort of feel I was going to say not the burden of, it's an opportunity for ALIA about having an employer engagement strategy. I think it's very hard for you to advocate too strongly to your employers, the councils, or the state government, depending where you are, because you've got to be a good egg and you've got to be there and saying, no, I can keep doing it. You don't want to be sort of seen as a whinger or targeted in that way. But there are things which also that advocacy to employers can be done more powerfully and more freely, either at a national level or a state level. And so I think a role that ALIA can play is to actually talk to, be out there talking to, whether it be local government associations, whether it be vice-chancellors, whether it be school principals and ministers, in all forms of government, to actually talk about this is what librarians and others who work in the library sector do, and it's amazing. And these are all the different types of skills, and so you need to value it, and this is why. And if you are recruiting and you're finding it hard to get you put in there and you can't get a librarian, well, maybe think a bit more broadly. Don't just think, oh, that's too hard, we'll just get an admin person. Think about what are those skills, but we need to teach them. Someone said the other day at a meeting, it might have even been you, Lisa, that I had, but sort of said, when we're coming up against people either who are employers who don't understand or people who are working, in the industry but don't actually know all the ins and outs of what it is to be an LAS professional, but they're there and they want to, rather than thinking, oh, they don't understand and just, that puts you in a bit of a slump, actually sort of deal with them with empathy, which I thought was a really powerful comment in terms of that approach, because you're then approaching them in a really positive way, as in, what can we do together? And what can I teach you? Let's do this together. And it's opening up possibilities rather than blocking things down. And it just makes you feel better when you go home at night too, because you're actually working together. And I think it fits with the values of the library sector. So I think that's something that ALIA, in its advocacy role, needs to do, which will be really important. But it's also something you can do on a one-on-one basis with people you're dealing with. I'm now going to jump ahead, and apologies for this. So the consultation that we're in at the moment, so phase 1 is where there's the consultation paper, which is out, and there are a number of different ways that you can actually provide feedback. There's workshops, I think most of them are probably done now. There might be a couple of online ones, but I think they're mainly done. You can do a written submission if you want to sit down and write a long written submission. That would be wonderful. And in fact, I really hope that QPLA does write a submission and put something in. So different organisations, but as an individual, there's a really quick way you can do it. If you go to the website, ALIA website, and then look at the professional pathways page, there is a button you can click for Have Your Say, and it literally takes about 10 minutes. There's some free text things, but it just goes through and cherry picks some of the key questions from the consultation paper and asks you. And it's one of those, not tests, but one of those things that you can't get the answer wrong, because it's just like, what we want to know is, what do you think, what do you feel about where you work, how you work, who you work with. And we really, what often happens in consultation processes, of which I've been involved in a number in different sectors, is that you get the loud voices. You get the people who have, an agenda to push, and they're very effective at it. And the people who are just doing their job and going, oh no, it's all okay and it'll be fine, we want to hear from you. Now, this could be a room full of people who have an agenda to push, I don't know, and if you do, good luck to you. But I actually, each and every one of you, how you feel about your job in the sector matters, and we really want to know, and this is your opportunity, and it will literally take you about 10 minutes if you go to the webpage and just fill in those surveys. Even if you don't even read the paper, the consultation paper, or just read the executive summary, you know this stuff because you're living it. The other thing that's coming out, and it was launched today, and I have heard that in the library sector that you love a good survey. And, that's good because there are a lot of them out there. And another one, which ALIA has launched today, is, in a sense, a compilation. So they've had the qualitative stuff with all the different workshops and people writing in free text about how they feel, etc., and that's all being coded. But then this is a survey which will be the quantitative data, and so that's being launched today. It'll be open for about 3 weeks. I've just been testing it today and, picking up important things like typos. But that's going out, so also have a look at that. So either that or Have Your Say, or both. That would be great if you can be involved. Then I'm going to skip through these. This is something you can look at in the consultation paper. The big questions are the other thing that the consultation paper looks at. And I'll just skip through all of these. You can see I'm not very good. I've never been good at surprises. I always like to know what's coming ahead. So I just open my birthday presents if I get them a week before I open them. Anyway, so there it all is. The questions are around, and this is in the consultation paper, and the ways I've described that you can have a say touch on this. But this is about, what does professional recognition mean to you? Once again, no wrong answers. What is it? So, I mean, anybody, what is professional recognition? I mean, we could be using language that you're all like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. And if that's the case, I'd like to hear. But does anyone have a go at what is professional recognition? What does that mean? Yep.
I kind of imagine it like it's that value trade. Like I'm giving my life and my time and my experience and all of my experiences up until this point to this cause or to whatever. Mm-hmm. So what is the value that is also going to be coming back at me? Mm-hmm.
Yep, and I think that's, man, I love that interpretation of it, because I think that's a very fluid, inclusive way of looking at it, which is what you're giving should be recognised no matter what it is. What the consultation paper, or what sort of it focuses on in some ways, which I much prefer your approach, but is more around, am I going to be an associate ALIA member? What do I get to put after my name? Is it AALIA, or is it Allied ALIA, or is it nothing because I'm a library assistant and so I don't even get to put that? So professional recognition is about the type of membership at the moment, is where it's all linked in, but it's also about, and obviously then your qualifications and your degree and everything, but it's around what do you get to be called in the profession? What does ALIA call you? And so, in a sense, what we want to hear from people about is, well, what does matter to you? So professional recognition, does it matter to you that, and I'm not making any judgments here because I don't have any, I actually just want to know what people think, but does it matter to you if people confuse you, as if you're a librarian, and they confuse what you do and what a library tech or a library assistant does, and if someone's saying, oh, you're all librarians, does that matter? Now, you might say, well, it does, because I've done all those years of study and I've got all these skills, and fair enough. But who does it matter to? Does it matter to the public? No. Does it matter to your employer, though, or a job you're going for? Well, I think, your qualifications, your experience do matter, and you should be proud of them. But what does it matter? Who does it matter for? And is it really about what ALIA says, we call you? Or is it about your employer, or is it about yourself? So that's all getting a bit deep, but it is, what does that mean? Now, I've come from working as a career, well, I am a lawyer as well, I should have admitted that, but don't hold that against me. But it is that thing where, for a lot of lawyers, they want everyone in the room to know it, that they are one. The nicest thing people have said to me in my career before ALIA was, oh, I keep forgetting that you're a lawyer. I normally go, thank you. So, yeah, those sort of questions we really want to know from you again. So professional recognition, think about that. Continuing professional development. Once again, I think one of the values that I understand from the library and information sector is, lifelong learning. Not just for yourselves, but for your communities. We heard about with some of the lightning talks today about the fact that how do you sort of bring people with you on a journey, even if they're already there doing what they're doing, how do you sort of extend them and open the world up to them? And a true responsibility, in ALIA's constitution, the objectives around the free flow of information, and that's needed for democracy. And it is as high and as important as that. And especially with this thing with the path to treaty, etc. There are these big things where you're sort of the holders of this world of information. I know everyone's got Google and everything else, but to actually have people who can, number one, care and actually spend the time with you to help you, help open up information and pathways and knowledge, and to, curate it in a way that it's suitable for where you're at in the community or what your background is really sort of powerful. And so that continuing professional development, I would think it's almost an obvious thing that, yes, of course that's important, and you continue to do it. But the question I suppose we're asking is, the next step is, how important is it, and do you want to be recognised for it by your employer, by ALIA, by what you can put after your name? And do you think it's something to be able to say that you're part of the library and information services sector? Do you think that that should be mandatory? That you have to do a certain number of hours of it? Now, I've looked at the PD postings that ALIA sends out, which has a lot of, stuff that's free, because I know cost can be a real issue. I looked at that the first time I looked at it, and I was like, a lot of it looked fascinating, and I thought, wow, you'd have to take a week off work to actually get through it. It was a little bit overwhelming. But you can say that something matters, but as soon as you say, well, what are you prepared to put in place to show that it matters, sometimes it's different. So have a think about whether you think that should be mandatory or not, and what that means. In a lot of regulated professions like law, like nurses, doctors, accountants, whatever, where they have to have a licence and be registered with an association to be able to practice, then that professional development and ongoing hours is mandatory, because that's what it is. Like social workers, librarians, I keep trying to find a lot of other equivalent ones, project managers, it's not, you don't have to be licensed. You could, you're not considered dangerous enough that, that you need to be licensed. Like, there's a lot of trust there. So I take it as a good thing that you don't need to be licensed, and careful what you wish for. But because you don't need to be, do you want to have that sort of impose that on yourselves to say, no, this matters to us? Or do you not mind if there's somebody who got their degree in 1979 and they're, holding it up saying, I'm a librarian and I'm the best, but they actually haven't done any, I doubt there's anyone out there in this boat, but they haven't done any continuing professional development of any sort since 1982. What matters to you? What does it mean to be part of this industry? So all of those things are there. Either you can answer those questions in the form of just, pick a box on the sort of multiple choice, and it won't take long, but you can still get your point across, or you can write something, free text, whatever, but really, really want to hear from you, because your voices all matter. So I think that is it, and I'm around tonight in, as I said, this is all new to me, these conferences, but with the vendors and the exhibition hall, and I'd be thrilled to speak to each and every one of you. Unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow, but it's been wonderful, so thank you.
Thanks, Cathie. That was absolutely fascinating. So we're going to throw out to some questions here. Just hang on. I'm a little taller than this. That's better. So we'll see if there's any questions for Cathie. So hands up, questions? None? Got to be loud. Come on. No, perfect. Oh, is that one over there? No? I think she was just raising her hand to her face. No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much for that, Cathie. I will now hand over quickly to Nicole.